The coup d'etat that led to a dictatorship. The night of March 26 of 1976, a coup d'etat was effectuated in Argentina, followed by the death of a great Argentinian leader, Juan Domingo Perón, and the weak and unsuccessful following government, led by his widow. The three military branches, the army, the navy, and the air forces, decided to act and took control of the government, starting a 7-year dictatorship that changed Argentina forever.
The government did know that there were high chances of having a coup. That is why President Maria Estela Martinez de Perón tried, without success, to improve the economy. She could do nothing and people got angry, making it inevitable to be overthrown by the armed forces, that believed that with a lot more authoritarianism they could have a better
So
country.
now we have this militarized government where terror is everywhere. Thousands of political opponents were imprisoned or even executed. Also, the government built concentration camp like facilities. Even though Videla had great plans for Argentina, he didn't make it the right way. He wanted to make a change in economy in order to have all the population in the middle class.
Over these years, at least 10,000 and at most 30,000 Argentinians were killed. However, this indeed had an impact in Argentine culture. Mario Benedetti wrote Pedro y el Capitán, in which he described the situation that was going on in Argentina during these years.
I was 10 years old back then, and it was enough to feel the difference between Peron and Videla. During this time, school became a place where we were taught to respect our roots and how good our government could be. We were also told to respect our government no matter what.
During this period of time, culture was a problem to Videla. He needed to regulate books, movies, television shows, magazines, and other things to avoid most of the citizens to have revolutionary thoughts. Because of this, the blacklist was created. With this list, Argentinians could be aware of which things they weren't allowed to read or watch.
The army took a new meaning. Almost everything was controlled by using them.
During Videla's regime, he kidnapped a lot of people. He did not care the social class they belonged to. They did not care if that their jobs were. He only kidnapped people. He did it by making the military to disappear the people, and then the military took the people to prisons in which they got interrogated, and these interrogations consisted of torturing mostly, and it was to get information the government wanted and needed.
Economically speaking, the regime had ups and downs because of different internal and external causes that started since 1930. Because of these continuous changes in the economy, in 1976 the military forces implemented an orthodox free trade doctrine by implanting a new government.
New economics team inside the new government that believed in free trade, the search for stabilization in Argentina started without thinking about social and political costs.
Even with all those loans and the government saying they were rescuing the economy, there was an excessive foreign participation and corruption started to increase. This was all Argentine government was trying to avoid. The level of poverty grew from 7 to 28%, creating an enormous social gap. The wage decreased and the people were annoyed with the government of Videla. Because of this, the people created revolts all around the country, thinking that in some aspect the strikes and revolts would change the economy or the way of thinking of the government.
The beginning of a new economic era for Argentina started with the liberalization of free trade market in an international aspect by reducing the importation tariffs, and also freezing wages was a big part of the change. Because of this economical growth, the International Economical Fund approved a loan of $290 million, making Argentina credit-worthy, receiving more loans in the next 4 years.
deed het uiteindelijk, maar niet Kruis. Centrum was niet.
The regime used sport as propaganda. A very good example of this was in the FIFA World Cup in 1978, where the dictatorship wanted to show the world that their ideas were the ones that were going to make the world greater and efficient. Just as Hitler did with the Olympic Games, they used this to drive the attention elsewhere, to hide the fact that they were disappearing a lot of people during those times.
Argentinian sport, as a major cultural body within society, was not exempt from the mournful action of the military government that seized the country on March 24, 1976.
Sports suffered an impact, and the people that were more shocked were the athletes, except for those who had pre-existing political participation. And one example of those was Miguel Sanchez, who disappeared in January of 1978. I really knew how my brother was. He didn't have a lot of knowledge because he left school, but he did know what was right and what was wrong, and we accept the reason that he's not here with us. Several famous athletes did not realize the dimension of the coup that was overturning the weak Peronist government of Maria Estela Martinez, the widow of Juan Domingo Perón. During this period of time, there were 4 changes in the economy ministers, also an inflation of the 300% in 1975.
A lot of athletes were disappeared, like Miguel Sanchez, Daniel Shapira, Carlos Alberto Rivada, Santiago Sánchez Viamonte, Otilio Easter, Pablo Balut, among others. During the 1940s decade, Argentina suffered political domination. During this time, a new movement called Peronism was implanted in Argentina by Juan Domingo Perón.
Peronism was a movement created during the first 2 presidencies of Juan Domingo Perón. This movement consisted in a strong union with that favored the working class.
During the dictatorship, people who disobey or oppose their government became political prisoners and were sent to prisons.
Political prisoners were taken into Rosens prison that was located in the Patagonia. This prison gained popularity thanks to an escape and a massacre after that during August of 1972. This massacre was called Trujillo's Massacre, and it took place in August 22 of 1972.
The strike made Jorge Rafael Videla president of Argentina. This started the Proceso de Reorganización Nacional, which made the Navy, Army, and Air Forces control the country equally.
During 1978, there was a territorial dispute between the dictatorships of Chile and Argentina over the southern islands of the Beagle Channel.
The junta militar was planning an attack on Chile in order to gain the sovereignty of these islands. This could only be stopped by Pope intervention, who was John Paul II. He was a mediator between these 2 nations, and he was the only one who could achieve peace.
Even though a lot of national money was given to the armed forces, it was not a good inversion. Most of the money went to maintain the numerous prisons and to pay for the high wages of the military, especially of high-ranked officers.
As proven with the Falklands War, Argentinian military was completely obsolete and incompetent, especially if we're talking about waging a war.
Even though this period was hard for the Argentinians, today we see them as a prosperous country with lots of history and tourism. This is one of the examples of totalitarian regimes across the world, and it is important because even though the most important events of 20th century happened at Europe, millions of lives were lost during the regime.